In this video, we will understand what exactly is AutoRest.exe file. If you have worked on WCF, which is the SOAP-based service, of course, when we work on WCF SOAP-based service, we know that we have something called as WSDL. And the WSDL is Web Service Description Language. It will be generated for the service that we create. The metadata of a given service will be available under WSDL. So based on the WSDL, we will be able to simply create a client proxy by using a Visual Studio or client utility, which is called SVC utility, or we could also do that using a channel factory based on the code. Now, similar kind of an infrastructure is what is made available for RESTful service. AutoRest is the exe file that you can install, and with the help of AutoRest, you will be able to generate the proxy part of the code for the RESTful service. In this demo, I will be walking you through how to create the client part, but we definitely require something to run as a service, and we need to consume that particular service. To do that, I've created a project. I've used the Web API version 2, so therefore I've named it as Web API 2 sample, which is created using Visual Studio 2017. As you could see here, I have not done anything extra. It is the default template that is generated by Visual Studio. I'm just making use of the same controller. So you can see I have something called as the value controller.cs. The value controller.cs is the default template. As you could see, I have a get with the default values like value 1, value 2, because it's only the syntactical aspect that I should be worried about onto the server part. So I have not really implemented anything explicit. So you can see that these are the methods that is available, which is part of the default template. On the other hand, I have to configure this to generate the API. For generating the API part of it, I have configured it with Swagger. It's beyond the scope as part of this particular video for us to discuss on how the Swagger is configured on the server side, because we will be doing that only onto the client side perspective. So this is already configured, and I could see that under the start, I have got swagger config.cs, which has been taken care, and I've just enabled what is essential, only that particular part. So the Swagger onto the server side will help you in creating a wrapper, allowing you to generate the metadata for a RESTful service. So let's now go and click on the start button. I'm running this as part of Google Chrome. So when I click on it, it's going to execute it and host it as part of IAS. It's having a localhost :59054 as the port. If I say /, I have API/values. If I select API/values, when I enter, you could see that it made a call to the get method in this case, and it returned me a value. I have another method which is also for HTTP GET, and it is accepting an argument. So therefore, I have one method without an argument, another one with an argument. The get method returns I enumerable of type string. It's that we have already had a look into the output. Let's go to the client side and create it. To do that, I will have to go to the Visual Studio. I have simply created a console application. I have named it as AutoRest client sample, and I have not really generated the REST code. So to do that, there are two things that we need to do. First is we need to install AutoRest exe file. So first and foremost, we'll see how to go and install it. To do that, let me switch to the command prompt. And you could see that in the command prompt, I've typed npm install-g, that's basically for global, and you have AutoRest. So when you type this and press an enter, it is supposed to install AutoRest.exe file for you and the related aspects. It's that I've already installed this node package. I will simply show you that after you finish install, if I say AutoRest -help help and press an enter, it should show you the details. Now let's understand how to create a proxy. I have already got a service running and how to go and work with the proxy. Before we do that, let's have a look into from the server's viewpoint. If you type in the URL with the base address /swagger/UI/index, it will automatically show you the configured one once you have configured it, of course. So when I click on values, you will be able to see what are the different methods that you have and how to invoke it. Now, similarly, I also happen to have the document part of it. So that is like doc/v1. So you could see that when I go into this particular URL, it shows me the actual generated metadata for the service that I'm running right now. So this metadata is what is required for you to generate onto the client side. It's very similar to SVC utility that we use as part of WCF service. So when I minimize this and go back to the command prompt, and in the command prompt, I will have to type in, as you could see, I have AutoRest -input. That's a tag which indicates what is the URL that you need to pass. I've already passed the URL that I showed you where it generated the JSON file. And then I want the output to be stored into a file called serviced.cs. Technically service demo, right? So it is serviced.cs. And I could see that -output file name is the flag for you to give the name of the file. So when I press an enter, when I say dir, you could see that there's a folder that has been created named as generated. So if I say dir, you could see there is serviced.cs file that has been created. So I am now supposed to make use of this particular file. That is exactly why I have created a console application. Let's go back to Visual Studio. I'll right click and say add an existing item. So the existing item is available under, in my case, I've created under temp folder. I have generate and I have the CS file. So when I add it, right, the CS file does contain all the code, the actual proxy that is required for you to make a call. This makes programming a lot more easier from the viewpoint of testing and also from invoking viewpoint. It created a typed version of a particular REST service for all the methods that it provides from that particular API which we created. There are certain things that you will have to configure in order to make this proxy work. First is it is dependent on Microsoft.rest. So to do that, let me right click on the project and you see there's an option called as manage NuGet packages. So when I click on that, I have already installed it. So I'll show you from the installed one. I have installed Microsoft.rest.client runtime. So when you select that, it will automatically install Newtonsoft.json. That is the dependency part of it. So both of these things will get installed. So these are the ones that you must have for you to have the proxy consumed. Perfect. So it's that I have created this. In the generated part, I did not give an explicit namespace. So in this case, it goes with v, which is being configured. So I would say v dot, that's a namespace. And I have web API sample. That's your proxy. So I would create obj web API sample. When you say equal to new web API sample, you will have many overloads. The first overload that comes in as a param array, because it's a param array, it is optional. If in case you want, you will be able to create a delegate handler and have the pipeline created even onto the client side. So anyway, we are not programming on that. So I'm just simply using it without passing anything into it. And after this, when we say obj proxy dot, you will have this values because that's the name of the controller I had created. When I say values dot, you could see that there is this, all the methods that I had used is being generated. I had two get methods for which I did not give an explicit name, right? So you have get one and I have get with HTTP message async. So I'm just going to make use of one of this method. As you could see, these methods are async. That means it's returning you a task. So in this case, whatever I have, the first method returns me a single dimension array, which was like I enumerable of type string. So therefore that is automatically converted to a lot of list of string. And it is a HTTP response operation response object. So I'll take that into a variable by simply saying var RST is equal to, let's say, semicolon. And the very next line will say RST dot. I will have the RST dot result. So when we make a call to this particular method, it's better because it's a task. The task is going to be executed and it produces result. So we are interested in result. So I've simply taken the result and console.writeLine. Let's go with console.writeLine. RST.body. I could see that RST.body is of type ilist of string. So therefore, I would simply want to print by taking the 0th value, so which will be value 1. Or we can run through this with the for each loop. So let's say cut it. I'll surround this. Surround it with a for each loop. And I would say item in rst.body, which happens to be the list. I would simply print the item. So let's see if this program is executing. To do that, I'm enabling a breakpoint on line number 12 and click on the start button. But before we do that, we also have to make sure that the service is up and running. In my case, of course, I have already executed it and I did not terminate it. So let's go and execute it. So F10, you can see that it created an instance. Now it executed it and got the result. The result is available for you as a response from this URL, which is all been taken internally because of the proxy. And now you could see that when I go with the item, it's supposed to print those individual items. There are 2 items, so therefore if I go to the console, you could see that value 1 and value 2 is being printed. So that brings us to the end of this demonstration. We discussed what is AutoRest.exe, which is the exe file that makes it possible for us to generate a proxy for the RESTful service.